Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lysha and I'm the owner of Lysha Be Creative, and today's video is going to be this gorgeous floral stripe tumbler. So I've done stripe tumblers on my channel before, but I am just loving this look and I thought it would be perfect to match one of the coveted florals from the Flint Sister Supply Shop. So of course everything I use in today's video will be listed and linked down in the description box, as well as some discount codes for you to save a little money. But let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I actually had off camera cut these strips of vinyl. So this is the Courage vinyl, which was part of the coveted florals pack from Flint Sister Supply Shop that actually will be restocked rather soon. But I just cut these into 1-inch strips because I have a second cup that's going to look actually just like this for an upcoming tumbler launch that I'm doing. So since that is already cut and ready to go, I'm just going to go ahead and get my 30-ounce hog tumbler prepped. And so we're going to do the same prep process we do for all of this. I'm going to go ahead and scuff up the entire surface of this with a sanding block, and then I'm going to go ahead and wipe that down with a little bit of 91% rubbing alcohol and a paper towel. So I will be going in and directly applying the strips of vinyl first before I do the spray painting and glitter option. Certainly you could do this opposite. You could spray paint and then do this process as far as adding the vinyl stripes, but I decided to go with the vinyl first and then I'll cover it up. So what I just did there was a really fun trick that I have been doing when I need a straight line to help me line up vinyl, especially vinyl strips, because it's not a full sheet of vinyl, is to use my regular, paper cutter and line that up right up against the blade and use that to just kind of make a score or indentation mark right in the actual stainless steel. So of course all of that will be covered up anyway. You're not going to see that scratch that I created on the tumbler, but it's a great guideline to help me be able to get all of my strips of vinyl on straight. So we're going to do these 1-inch straight strips. We're going to do these 1-inch strips. Wow, I'm super tongue-tied today. Sort of in every other pattern, right? Because we'll have vinyl, then glitter, then vinyl, then glitter, etc., all the way until the bottom of the cup. So if you choose to start with vinyl on top or glitter on top, that's completely up to you. It just is dependent on what kind of look you're going for. And so I'm going to continue this process here, just continuing to add my strips of vinyl in order just down the length of the cup. One thing that I always like to mention when it comes to doing like striped cups like this is I always try and do my best to, even if I can't hide the seams, be able to put them in the same spot all the way for the top to the bottom of the cup. So I hope that makes sense, meaning like all of my seams are directly lined up in a straight line on the back end of the cup, and that will also be the same for when I do my vinyl striping as well. So that will also follow those same seam lines, and it just kind of keeps all of that in the same section, so it gives it a much like cleaner look to the overall tumbler. So I'm going to go ahead and get that second line of vinyl on there. So what I've just done to kind of give myself the gap that I need that will be glitter is I've just used a piece of 1-inch painter's tape as kind of my guide right along that seam or score marker created with my paper cutter, so that I could make sure I have the same amount of a gap for glitter in between each of the tape lines. So I'm just going to continue to move down the length of the tumbler in the same fashion and applying vinyl just like I normally would, except for we're using much smaller strips of vinyl versus using a full sheet, which you most likely have seen me do in other tutorials. And then we're going to do this all the way to the bottom of the cup. So I love the look of vinyl like striped tumblers, and it's kind of funny because when I was young, like I hated like any sort of pattern look, and like now as an adult in the crafting world, like I absolutely love any sort of pattern. I love florals, I love stripes, I love polka dots, I love leopard print, and those were all things that I would have stayed away from. I was very much a solid color kind of gal. Like my wardrobe could not have anything crazy colored. It had to be very like solid colored, very plain, very boring. It's just kind of funny how my sort of taste and palette has changed over the years, but every time I make like a striped tumbler, I just remember how much I hated when my mom would put me in something striped, like for an event, whether it was for church or whether we were going to a party, and she'd, you know, match me with my sister and we'd be like in the same outfit, the same stripe outfit, but different colors kind of a thing. I used to hate those kinds of patterns just because I just didn't like how they looked. But funny how things change as you kind of get older. Anyway, enough about that. So now that we're at the bottom of the cup, so the 1-inch vinyl line is not going to fit all the way down around the bottom, okay? So because this is a 30-ounce cup, all of these stripes won't fit when you get to the bottom. Only half of that strip of vinyl is going to fit. So I'm still going to go ahead and get this lined up there. And then what I'll do is I'll do what I normally would with a section of vinyl when it overlaps. I'm just going to go ahead and pull over the edge of the vinyl, and then I'll go ahead and use my my cup edging tool along the bottom to be able to cut off all that excess vinyl. So I could have just cut the strip of vinyl in half, I suppose, and then got it lined up, but this is just as easy or just as simple for me to be able to do by just pulling that vinyl as tautly and as tightly as I can without ripping it, and making sure that it's nice and smooth over the butt of the cup. That way I can get a nice straight line around that bottom rim with my cup edging tool. To kind of just give it a nice clean look. So this bottom section will also be spray painted when I go into spray paint the stripes of the cup as well. I did another cup exactly like this, just with different striping lines, and I actually am going to just paint the bottom of that cup because I ended up not glittering it when I went to do the stripes. So that one will be slightly different, but I do like the look of this one that I'm showing you in today's tutorial that has the really cute glitter butt. I just feel like it pulls it all together. So now that it is all cleaned up and kind of ready to go, I'm just going to make sure that all of my edges look okay, make sure I don't have any vinyl that's overlapped over the top, and then we are going to prep this cup to get ready for spray painting. So of course I want to protect that gorgeous vinyl, so I'm just going to use my 1-inch painter's tape, and I'm going to go ahead and cover up all of this vinyl here. So I'm going to do a little speed session here. I'm not going to make you watch me cover the entire cup in vinyl or in painter's tape, but just cover up all of those strips of vinyl just to make sure that I don't get any of it accidentally when I go to spray paint, get anything on that vinyl, because you wouldn't want to apply acetone or alcohol to this because it will remove the ink off of the actual vinyl. So quick speed session of me just covering that up. For the bottom section, I just applied that 1-inch painter's tape, and again, just use my crafts knife to just cut off the edges of that. So we're going to go in with sort of like this camo green color. It's a Rustoleum color. I've had it for forever, but we're going to go ahead and take this over to my spray booth to get it spray painted the kind of green color that's going to match really nicely with the glitter we're using. So at my really bougie spray tent over here, my Lazy Susan though update, it did come in. I just have to get it set up so that I actually have a better, you know, system of being able to turn the cup as I spray paint instead of this piece of paper that's been here for forever. But one solid coat of that, making sure that none of the stainless steel was exposed. And this probably took, this is like a matte color, so it didn't take very long to dry, probably 10 or so minutes, and it was fully dry. So I've gone ahead and mixed up a little bit of some fast set epoxy. This was actually leftover epoxy from a couple cups I had gone ahead and epoxied on the turner, and this is exactly why sometimes it's better to just use regular setting epoxy. So unfortunately what happened is I waited too long, meaning it took me too long to epoxy the cups that I had been working on. So by the time I came back to this cup, the epoxy was already sort of trying to set up. So it was too sticky for me to be able to smooth it on the rest of the cup. So what I simply did was mixed up another 5 mLs of the fast set epoxy and applied that right away to the cup. Not all 5 mLs, but probably about 2 mLs all the way on the cup. I am going over the painted stripes. It doesn't really matter if you do so. Certainly just make sure that you can find your tape lines. You're actually going to watch me struggle a little bit because I didn't leave myself like a folded over tape line so that I could easily grab it and remove the tape lines. So that is definitely something I would encourage you if you're going to do, you know, stripes or something where you're going to glitter over so that you can be able to find the ends of those tape lines. So a really thin coat of that epoxy. It's pretty warm in my space, so I don't really need to let it sit, and it smoothed on really easily. And so then we're going to go in with the glitter of today. So this glitter is Olea. This is from Peachy Olive Glitters. It's been in my stash for a really long time. This one gives me like super like nature-esque, like those natural colors. Gives me like a really pretty boho vibe too. I think this would look really pretty on a cup that was like boho themed. This is a really pretty green color that's not like your typical bright in your face or Christmas tree green. So it's a really pretty, very natural looking green that I thought just paired so well with the florals that are in this vinyl. So once this glitter is applied, of course, I'll get all that glitter picked up and then I will tap off all the excess glitter that is on the stripes and on the cup that isn't actually stuck to any of that epoxy. And then I'll go ahead and get my vinyl, or not my vinyl, get my painter's tape, I should say, removed from the cup. So of course you want to remove those strips of painter's tape really quickly after you're done, especially if you're using a fast set, because a fast set will really start to set up within, you know, your pot life of time for your epoxy is usually like 20, maybe 30 minutes if you're lucky. So you really want to make sure that you very quickly get your tape removed. Don't let that sit too long with the tape still on it, because that will then adhere to your cup and then it would be near impossible to get that tape off afterward. So here I am, just a quick speed session, just removing all of the lines of the painter's tape. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and let this cure for a couple hours. I will then brush the cup off of any excess glitter. Make sure that it's nicely brushed off. There's no stray glitter. I will then spray seal that, which I didn't show here. I'll try and include that in some of my other tutorials before I put it on the turner. And I did 3 coats of epoxy. So normally I'd only do 2, but Olea, the glitter, is actually kind of more of a, not a chunky necessarily, but like a medium chunk glitter. And so because I didn't roll my tumbler in like parchment paper or a piece of cardstock to really make sure that all the glitter was flat, I needed to do 3 coats of epoxy of about 20 mLs each to get a real smooth finish before I felt comfortable with going into the vinyl striping. So I did just a quick sort of sanding of the top rim, which didn't really need a lot of work. The bottom as well just needed just a little bit of light sanding around those bottom edges. And now we're ready for our vinyl striping. So this was really tough for me to come up with what colors I wanted to do for the vinyl line work here. I ended up going with white and pink for this one, and then I did a sort of camo green color and pink for the other version of this, which is literally the same duplicate. It just has a painted bottom versus a glittered bottom and has different colored striping. But the vinyl lines that I am putting on here, the white vinyl is 11 inches long by 0.2 inches wide. And then I have the pink vinyl strips, which are 11 inches long, but they are 0.08 inches in like height or your width, depending on how you're doing it, obviously, in your canvas. So I'm going around and of course doing the white vinyl lines too, all the way down to the bottom as well, even that small section there. I often get a lot of questions on how I make my vinyl lines so straight, and I will tell you that it's not always easy. Even with using the cup cradle, which I do find helps me kind of keep my hand a little bit more steady when I am placing the vinyl strips, I definitely still put vinyl on crooked. So it's definitely just something you have to kind of keep at, you know, pick your cup up, continue to look at it. If it still looks off, you know, take that opportunity to, you know, pick up and readjust those lines, which I ended up doing a couple times while I was working with this particular cup. And it really will, it just takes practice. You know, there are some cups where I've got it, I've nailed it, but when you have this many lines on a cup, you know, one wonky line really does make all of the lines look a little bit crooked. So it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to continually eyeball it, you know, take off and replace your lines. I always cut extra lines as well in the event that I do really put something on really crazy and when I lift it back up, I can't get it to stick the correct way. But it definitely just takes practice. You know, I had to readjust it, like I mentioned, after I showed this clip right here, I noticed one line that just didn't look right, so I went back and picked that up and readjusted that to just make sure that it was all lined up and it all looked straight. So once the vinyl lines are sort of all placed, the last thing I'm going to do before I put this on the turner for final coats of epoxy is I am going to seal this. So you guys know that typically I only seal vinyl if it's like a washi tape or it's, you know, something that could potentially lift. But because these were double lines and I had to lift a couple to kind of replace them, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any issues with the epoxy process and my vinyl lifting. So adding a little bit of polyacrylic really just helps keep all of that vinyl down and give me a smooth finish for my final 2 coats of epoxy. So after 2 final coats of epoxy, this is the final look. I still am up in the air if I should add a decal to this. If you have an idea for a decal, definitely let me know down in the description box down below. But I really do love this striped cup. I really hope that you enjoyed it too. If you loved today's video, give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again in the next one. Bye!